Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Can't Wait. Sounds terrible. That's Eleni. That's Patrick. That's Rachel. Producer Grace is producing. And we are not sponsored by the Psychics Gallery, but perhaps we should be. Because last week I reported on the Sun-Times report, I just report the news, into the city's inadequate sewers. Notwithstanding the Deep Tunnel Project, which is sort of an infamous, perhaps apocryphal solution to the city's flooding problems. And notwithstanding all of that, the city was under threat to have flooded basements because we can only handle a couple of inches of water. And then minutes later, Governor, and I also pointed out that Governor and renowned Elvis impersonator Rod Blagojevich was hired to lobby for a commutation or pardon for former CEO of ComEd, Anne Pramaggiore, who was convicted along with three others in the ComEd 4 case, alleging jobs for favors from Speaker Madigan. And shortly after we finished our broadcast, the heavens opened up and a federal appeals court freed Anne Pramaggiore and Mike McLean, so I didn't mention him, on bail in order to new trial. So Eleni, maybe I'm a psychic.
Yeah, you are. And I think we can expand. I think we can expand the firm into more services that we offer, which is telling the future. Because, as you said, we talked about the flooding issue, and lo and behold, because you said it, my basement got water in it, Dennis. So you'll soon be hearing from my attorney before we know it. You forget,
Eleni, I've been working for 15 years. He's never given me the winning lotto numbers. This is totally it's like a 20-year club thing, apparently, so just, the basement flood comes after a couple of years.
In addition to flood insurance, we should consider psychic insurance if this is now what we're going to be specializing in, Dennis. But I foresee a great future for you while you're covering this new field.
Rachel, I'm seeing flaming cheese. I don't know why. That's in my head.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you can burn down that cheese, but it's never going to come back to what I'm going to do if you continue with your bad premonitions of me. So, please.
So the news media, our friends in the news media, referred to the appellate court's ruling about the before mentioned ComEd, the ComEd 2 of the ComEd 4, Pramaggiore and McLean, that the pair of strict Supreme Court rulings on central issues like bribery and false statements led to a lightning quick reversal by the Chicago Federal Appeals Court, a case that once rocked Illinois politics and is now, as the Tribune put it, on, quote, increasingly shaky foundation. One of the things, this is one of my favorite orders. You hear this every once in a while in the law. So the Federal Appeals Court ordered that McLean and Pramaggiore be released from prison forthwith. Take that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where this shakes out with this case. Truly, you said shaky ground. It is, when I was in Springfield last week when this came up, when this happened, and it was rocking the world of the Springfield legislators and lobbyists down there. So it'll be interesting to see, what this does to the entirety of the case.
One of the big issues goes back to the Supreme Court's ruling involving an Indiana local elected official, and this was just a couple of years ago, that a bribe is no longer a bribe. There can be a gratuity, Rachel.
Yeah, I remember following that case pretty closely because we were still waiting to see what was going to happen with the ComEd case. And if that's on shaky ground, then hey, the whole thing certainly looks like it is.
Patrick, perhaps Eleni and Rachel got out of government just a little too soon. They could have
Well,
been
especially with the
getting
no
gratuities.
tax on tips. No tax on tips, that truck could have been free, you know? I mean, it's just a gratuity. Just don't try and use your credit card to pay the gratuity in Illinois after June 1st. That's a whole separate situation.
Patrick.
No, see, I got it all.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a good story. So, in other news, more receipts are in. Speaking of gratuities, in terms of Governor J.B. Pritzker's support for his Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton in the recently completed Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate, with Capital News Illinois reporting that the governor spent $10 million, according to recent filings, getting Juliana Stratton elected. Now, she was still outspent by a bit by Raja Krishnamurthy, but as you mentioned previously, it was the timing of the spend and the ways in which it was spent.
I mean, I personally, I get the attention on the amount of spending, but it doesn't surprise me in the slightest bit. You've got a candidate in the race. I mean, you're doing whatever you can to get them over that finish line. And I think we've seen this playbook before by, Team Pritzker, where they come in at the end, not at the end, but later in the race, and they have, they drive to the finish line and there's no letting up. And we saw that happen. And if it took $10 million, it took $10 million, but she won. So, yep. I mean, that's just, and to your point, Raja outspent them anyway. So, it's nuts when you think about that.
Well, Rachel, the presumptive, well, I don't want to be too much of a smartass, and I know that's unusual for me. The Democratic candidate for Senate participated in a Power Rising Summit in Chicago, which featured a lot of big deal women Democrats. AOC was here. The DNC convention chair, Minion Moore. Donna Brazile, who, of course, is on ABC News and is a veteran strategist. Star Jones was here. And a number of news items came out of that gathering. I guess most of it was wrapped around whether or not the United Snakes of America will ever elect a woman president.
I mean, if anyone on this podcast says that we're not ready for a woman president, I have some harsh words I'll have with you off the podcast, so Grace doesn't have to bleep things.
Good content.
that I'm saying, oh, it'd be great. Trust me. Look, I hope so, right? I mean, I'm not sure that some of the men in power are really getting the job done here. And I think it's time to branch out and to try. I mean, the assertion that women are somehow too emotional to hold these offices is growing increasingly laughable by the day, right? So yeah, let's get over it and start to elect women.
Yeah. I was just going to
What do you
pile on.
think? Go ahead, Eleni. No, please do pile on. We're looking for that.
Talk about laughable if we're talking about people being emotional, where we have somebody at the top of the tier here that's just the most emotional person that exists. And I think we all can say that that is not a reason why anybody should say we're not ready for a woman president. And I will just close by saying no other man on this podcast, including you, Dennis, should opine on this. And we should move to the next topic.
Yeah, no counterpoints are welcome here.
We should just get to the next topic before something bad happens.
Yeah.
There were some pretty strong strident words from Senate candidate Stratton at this meeting, and maybe it was preaching to the choir, given the gathering. But what would you advise her on the cusp of running a general election campaign here?
I mean, I think that people are looking for a reasonable voice right now. I think we've had a lot of questionable commentary out there over the last year or two, and I just think people are looking for, I mean, it's sad that this is what it's come to, but I think we're looking for a reasonable voice that is going to represent everybody in Illinois and not just certain parts of Illinois or certain people in Illinois. It's very important that now we have somebody that's really representing all of us, and those needs are very staggered, and it's a hard job to be kind of in the middle of it all. But that is what I think right now we would love to see, at least for me.
I agree. I think people are either so exhausted that they're tuning all of it out, or they are desperately seeking someone who sounds reasonable. So sound reasonable and people are going to pay attention. At least I hope so.
Definitely don't sound terrible.
In the middle.
That's for us. That's our
Yeah,
lane.
that's our job.
Do you think she's hitting that reasonable message right now?
I think it's too soon to tell, really. I haven't really followed, and to the point that you were almost making earlier, but stopped yourself. And I think I kind of tuned that race out after March 17th. So I haven't been following too closely. I'm more hoping that come when it's time that she takes office, if, again, not to be presumptuous, if she takes office, that she does represent that reasonable voice that we're all looking for.
But it does indeed feel like it's hers to lose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, Patrick, I know you've been very careful in this topic.
My internet just came back in. I'm sorry, I was frozen for the past segment. I apologize. I'm going to call tech support on that real quick.
So there is one infamous woman politician who did not get the chance to run for president, but had a pretty powerful perch for a long time in Illinois. Barbara Flynn Curry, who I didn't know very well, but I was certainly able to be in Springfield and watch her work for a number of years. 40-year veteran of the Illinois House, first woman to serve as the second in command majority leader of the chamber, and actually ran it with some teeth, even though Speaker Madigan was her leader. She passed away at the age of 85. A number of friends of ours were quite upset by that news, despite the fact that she had a good long life. She retired from the House in 2019, but her legacy was pretty incredible. I remember, I don't know if they still have this, but the Conference of Women Legislators, or the Women's Caucus, used to put on a variety show in Springfield, and she did a performance based on the music from the musical Chicago, What Mama Wants. Remember that? And it was What Barbara Wants, because she would decide what would get moved out of House exec and what wouldn't. And she gave quite a campy performance with the boa. Not the sort of performance that you would have expected her, since she was the like her leader, a steel hand and a velvet glove. But they don't make them like that anymore, I don't think.
No, that's right. In thinking about Barbara Flynn Curry, I was reminded of this when I was a teenager and was learning things about state government from our state representatives. The lesson they passed down about Barbara Flynn Curry and Mike Madigan was, according to them, they hated each other very early on and didn't get along. And then you think about the arrangement they had made to wield and yield power very successfully. And for all of us in the business and all of those things. We all have friends we work with on the other side of the aisle, etc. And making enemies in politics is one way of going about it, but respecting how people play the game, or their skills and abilities is something else. And whenever I look back on her career, I think, man, if things would be a lot different if it was Washington, D.C., more normal power struggle where one side's always trying to push the other one out the window in an act of defenestration. But here there was a power sharing agreement, and they both advanced the causes they cared about for decades.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Rachel and Eleni can attest to the fact that it's gotten pretty divisive and nonpartisan in Springfield in recent years, sort of capturing the national zeitgeist. But Barbara Flynn Curry, the speaker, was always perceptive about local political trends and developments, and she gave him a lot of cover with the progressive wing, such as it was in those days, because she was a Hyde Park Democrat. She was hardly a bomb thrower, but she was able to get a lot done, and to the benefit of the speaker.
I think she's a good example of why we need more women in politics. Practical, hardworking, willing to do what it takes to get the job done. I mean, that's what women are. I think having started in Springfield straight out of college, right? Regardless of party, I was always fascinated watching these strong women in power, watching her, watching Christine Radogno, watching, Judy Bartopinka, all of these women who had been able to, against, a lot of difficult odds, rise to positions of power. And because they were working hard, right? And they had to outwork everyone around them to do that. And I think that's a testament to what she was able to accomplish.
Well, here's to the spirit of Barbara Flynn Curry infusing the last month of Springfield, which truly can be terrible. And maybe I've just stepped on Eleni's sounds terrible. I don't know. Who wants to go first in terms of our first? Let's wait for producer Grace's sad trombones. There we go. Okay. Who wants to go first in the sounds terrible segment, which all of our millions of viewers count on?
So I'll go. I feel like the weather's finally getting nicer, despite Dennis's piss poor forecast last week. But I would say the weather is getting nicer. We're all like, summer's coming. This is great. Summer travel. We're all going on vacays. Hopefully everybody listening has vacays planned, because we're like, we gotta get out of here. And, we're all planning our trips, and I'm thrilled, but I wasn't thrilled yesterday when I saw the news. I think it was yesterday, the day before, that O'Hare is going to be cutting 300 daily flights from May 17th to October 24th. So I can't think of something that's going to be more terrible right now when we've already got so many issues going on with travel to begin with. We've also got, it's going to be so bad. And then you add little kids into it on your flight, meaning you're traveling with the kids. And I'm like, how is this going to affect my flights? Like, are my flights on this list of cancellations? So,
but Eleni, this is like that dad trick where if you leave later, you actually arrive earlier. The airport was oversubscribed, so your flight will actually be on time by the flights getting cut. It's all going to work out.
This sounds
Eleni,
like
I would worry more. It is a little bit of girl math, which could be dad math. Eleni, I also think you need to worry about whether or not the planes have fuel. But I understand
right.
that's
I was just
going to be an issue.
Too. I just thought, I think it was Europe saying they're down to like a couple weeks left of fuel, I think I saw, which, we're just going to ignore all that until it actually becomes a problem, but it's not good. Not good for the summer.
When I was in college, I was pretty good at navigating the E, just keeping it just a skosh above E.
Real quick on that, I've scared my children on the E as well, because as back to girl math and girl driving, I always ride the E as long as I can. And,
ride the E.
And I was like, hey guys, we're low on gas. Like I was trying to get them to not go somewhere. And I was like, well, we're low on gas. I don't have enough gas to get us there. So we're gonna head back home. And then I was actually paying attention. I'm like, oh God, like it's at 0. And then they freaked out in the car. And we're screaming to stop at a gas station because we were on E. We're on 0. So I feel that. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's
He
real.
is not for empty. It's for Eleni.
Exactly.
But Patrick, what's terrible for you?
Well, what sounds terrible to me, and it may not affect us here in Illinois so much, but the quarterly numbers came out again for our federal leadership PACs, as we all know that there's a election coming up. And the Republicans have squirreled away, $772 million to support their congressional majorities with the Republican National Committee, MAGA Inc., Senate Leadership Fund, and their House PAC. While the Democrats have about 142 million in the bank as of right now, but you add that all together, about $864 million worth of uplifting, positive messaging, which is going to unite the country in the weeks and months ahead as this election comes closer. But we'll see those numbers skyrocket, but the sums here are staggering. And what we're going to just see is positivity, sunshine, and rainbows.
Makes you feel warm all over. Rachel, what's terrible for you?
So I hate to bring this up after what happened last week, and I'm going to apologize in advance for what could happen, but I think I don't quite have Dennis's precognition or maybe witchcraft skills. I think you may have conjured that. But I read an article this week about how Illinois has had more tornadoes this year than any other state in the nation. 54 tornadoes, which sounds terrible. And I say this as someone, Twister is one of my favorite movies of all time. I could recite that line for line as a kid. I mean, it's an incredible film. The sequel was fine. But I think we all need to be careful and make sure our basements are well stocked. Luckily, I sleep in mine, as we discussed last week, so I should be sad.
But
I should be fine.
Eleni's will be damp. So that's
Better get that project fixed quick.
Well, I was going to talk about something terrible that happened in federal court the other day, according to the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin. A man who was injured when the seat of an exercise bicycle at Lifetime Fitness collapsed under him.
Ooh.
But a federal judge ruled that he waived his right to sue his gym for negligence thanks to the fine print in the Lifetime member usage agreement. And I was going to talk about how assumption of risk sounds terrible, but then I decided to go with something that sounds wonderful.
Oh.
Producer Grace is getting married this weekend to the love of her life, Katie. And doesn't that sound wonderful? That's a much better, nicer thing than all of the poo and vomit we've been talking about on this show for so long.
I mean,
Congratulations, Grace.
Grace.
Congrats,
very
Grace.
happy, but marriage is a treat. So buckle up.
It also sounds terrible. It's wonderful and terrible, all wrapped up in one. Well, if it's terrible, we're going to talk about it here. You've come to the right place. For Patrick, Rachel, Eleni, and producer Grace, I'm Dennis. We'll see you next time.